Good evening, everyone. It's Liam here with the England review for England's second match in Group B of Euro 2016. We played the old enemy, Wales. I mean, they call them the old enemy. They're a very old enemy, really. I think that's the thing is that we haven't played them competitively in a while. I mean, you don't really count qualifiers. Not to mention Wales haven't played competitively outside in a major tournament for a while outside of Euro 2016, so it's a bit of a strange comparison that. But nevertheless, massive game, first time in my lifetime, certainly probably in my dad's lifetime, that England and Wales have faced off in a game this big. It might even be the biggest game that England have ever played against Wales. So really big occasion. Really enjoyed the build up to the occasion. Obviously marred by a lot of violence in France, not by the England and Welsh fans obviously, but mostly by some poxy Russians in black masks. But it seemed like that didn't really affect the mood in this particular game. The English and Welsh fans are all good fun. We're not that different, England and Wales. I mean, we are, but you know what I mean. I think we all had that kind of revelation after the first game that any kind of fan violence is down to a bunch of idiots, not really down to anything to do with something that is representing the nation of England or Wales or any other nation that has had idiotic fans do things in the past. So we can just move right along from it. And I think this game, regardless of the result, which was a good one, regardless of the result, we still are able to come together and watch a good game of football. And that's exactly what we got. There was a worry, especially in the first half, which was absolutely dire, if you ask me. I mean, I was a bit of a nervous wreck, to be honest, mainly because England have made it so bloody hard for themselves, as they always do, by drawing with Russia and completely pissing the game away against one of the worst Russia teams I've ever seen. I mean, they are a million miles away from the side that made it to the semi-finals of the Euros 8 years ago, and they're not getting out of this group. They're probably going to finish bottom. They got beat by Slovakia. And the fact that they got beat by Slovakia just shows that we really should have put them to the sword a lot sooner than we did. But the fact that we went into this game sort of needing the win, where Wales were definitely, I wouldn't say they were playing for the draw, but they went in knowing that a draw would have been a good result for them, whereas a draw wouldn't have been considered a good result for us. And that was kind of evidenced in the style of play throughout the game. England dominated the ball a lot like they did against Russia, and Wales, as we expected them to, sort of, looked to pack the middle of the field, four central midfielders. They made a little bit of a tweak. They stuck Bale and Ramsey sort of as these two attacking midfielders with a bit of a free role behind Robson Kanu as a striker in that sort of weird Christmas tree formation that sometimes people use. I mean, I've seen it used on FIFA more than I've seen it used in real life, but it worked pretty well in the first half. In fact, I would say that the first half went exactly as Wales wanted it to. England, possessed the ball well, had flashes here and there. Raheem Sterling missed an absolute sitter inside 5 minutes. I mean, at this point, I think England fans could have a whip round and we pay for his ticket home and we get, Mark Noble or someone. I mean, even he would probably pay better on left wing than Raheem Sterling has in this tournament. I'm joking a little bit. I just think that he's a bit of a, nonce for, being all posting on social media about the fact that fans are giving him shit for playing badly. I do think he played decently against Russia. He definitely faded very quickly in the second game, or in the second half. But he was pretty terrible in this game. I mean, Harry Kane was absolutely anonymous as well. I've heard the word jaded used a lot to describe him. So those two were kind of like the flat people in the first half. But after Sterling missed that opening chance, you sort of thought, we need to take one of these chances, and we weren't creating an awful lot. Wales were just happy to sit and let us have possession, and they were trying to use Bale and Ramsey as those sort of, the pace on the break, and it worked pretty well. I mean, to be honest, Wales didn't create many chances at all. So when they did eventually get that free kick from 40 yards, I thought, here we go. Gareth Bale's definitely going to knock this one in. Even though in my heart of hearts, I didn't really believe that he was actually going to score it. Lo and behold, another goalkeeping error from the England number one. I mean, when it's Rob Green, you sort of go, well, that's our fault for not breeding any decent goalkeepers. But when Joe Hart is doing it at major tournaments, you start to think if it's like a degenerative disease. Like, is this passed on? Like, is the number one shirt for England cursed? David Seaman, brilliant goalkeeper, gets lobbed by Ronaldinho from 40 yards. Rob Green, less said about him the better. Paul Robinson back in the day, decent goalkeeper. Best we had at the time for sure. Gets done in by a bobble in Croatia. Never plays for the team again. Scott Carson, the list goes on, and Joe Hart adds his name to the list here, and you just sort of thought at that point, this is typical England. We've pissed away 2 points in the first game, and we look like we're going to piss it away here. Because, to be honest, when Wales scored, I didn't think we were going to score in that game. I thought this is exactly what Wales wanted. They wanted to soak up pressure, get a chance and take it, be 1-0 up at half-time, and then they're going to sit in, and unless we do something to break them down, which we had done nothing of in the first half, I think a lot of people were really poor. I think Dele Alli was taking terrible touches, really wasn't getting in the game at all. Harry Kane and Sterling, like I mentioned before, were really terrible in that first half. The real bright sparks came from the wide positions, obviously with the exception of Sterling. I thought Rose was decent. Obviously, didn't really rely on that left hand side quite so much. But on the right hand side, I thought Lallana and Kyle Walker especially were fantastic throughout the game. Lallana faded a little bit in the second half. I think that's probably more tiredness because the lad runs all over the pitch. Say what you want about him as a footballer for Liverpool, for England, whatever. He is an engine, and that's what we needed. We needed someone with pace who would actually get on these Welsh players who, let's be honest, yeah, they're decent team. Yeah, they've made it to a first major tournament, but they're not all Gareth Bale. If you rush them, if you bum rush them like he did, then they're going to cause them problems, and that's exactly what happened. Adam Lallana sort of looked like our most creative player in that first half, and that really tells you the tale of how it went for us. So half time, I'm sitting there depressingly looking myself in the mirror as I'm kind of washing my face, trying to wash out the tears in that first half. But there were reasons for optimism, I suppose. We knew that we were going to have a lot of the ball, and I just sort of thought to myself, right, Roy Hodgson, now's your time to shine, because he's a man who, at any other national team in the world, you look at Dunga, who was obviously the Brazil coach for the 2010 World Cup, got to the quarterfinals, got beat by Holland, got sacked. If an England manager got sacked every time he got knocked out in the quarterfinals, we'd never have a manager for more than 2 years, because you never make it past the quarterfinals anymore in an England shirt. Um, that kind of high standard is the kind of thing that you would expect from nations like Brazil, and even from England. Even though we don't have the best of record in competitions, you still expect more from English players, especially in the last 10, 15 years when we've had some fantastic players come through. And now we've got another young crop that looks exciting, and for some reason seem to be bottling it at this tournament so far. Until the second half came along and Roy Hodgson finally seemed to, go to Specsavers, dust off his little spectacles and go, oh yes, it seems to me that Jamie Vardy, yes, the man who scored 24 goals in the Premier League as Leicester City won the Premier League by 10 points. 10 points! Like, let's not forget that. I know that, we've all gotten over the whole Leicester thing yet, but actually, no, I don't think we should have gotten over the Leicester thing. I don't think we should ever get over the Leicester thing. This guy scored 24 goals for Leicester City, right? That's brilliant enough. Darren Bent scored 22 for Sunderland when they finished 10th one year, which for Sunderland is like winning the league. And I'm pretty sure he got a spot in the England squad for that. He definitely got a move to Spurs, I do remember that. But 10 points Leicester won the league by. And Jamie Vardy and Riyad Mahrez, obviously, as well, wish he was English, were at the centre of it. So Roy Hodgson finally wises up and does what a bunch of unpaid people like me, sitting on their sofas, have been screaming at the television for him to do since really the first half of the Russia game. Get some pace, get someone who's actually going to get at the defenders and make them worry. They're going to worry about a player like Jamie Vardy. Harry Kane is a good goal scorer, don't get me wrong, but he's one of those players who he seems to fade in and out, if you ask me. When he's hot, he's on fire. He's fantastic, but he still hasn't got that level of consistency. Obviously, at the top level, being international football, and after a season in which he really did carry his team at times, he just seems to be absolutely exhausted and bereft of ideas. Dele Alli wasn't linking up with him anywhere near as well as he had been at Spurs, so Roy made the very brave decision to stick him on the bench. Now, I was quite impressed with Roy Hodgson in the fact that not only did he put Vardy on for the obviously, bereft of confidence, and rightfully so, Raheem Sterling, he actually took Harry Kane off as well. Most managers would leave the top Premier League goalscorer on there, especially when you've brought the second top Premier League goalscorer on to partner him. But Roy Hodgson said, you know what, Daniel Sturridge has looked good in training. He's a fantastic player on his day. He's fully fit. Let's give him a whirl. And lo and behold, Roy Hodgson made the correct decision. We actually played better in the second half, a lot better, to the point where I was actually convinced that after we did score our goal, and don't get me wrong, when the second half started, at first it didn't really look like we were going to be up to much, but then we got going, we sort of upped the tempo. Dele Alli finally started looking good. Wayne Rooney was starting to spray balls around a bit. Adam Lallana was still chasing everything down, and we had players like Vardy and Sturridge who were fresh-legged, running at defenders, and they were asking questions of Wales, and that was something that Kane and Sterling just didn't do in the first half. They got completely played out of the game. And so when Jamie Vardy's goal went in, my first thought was he's offside, but luckily from the camera angle I could see the linesman on the far side, and I can see it wasn't. And at first I thought, well, the linesman's just balls that up, but I don't really care. I think England have earned their fair share of favourable incorrect refereeing decisions over the years, considering how many we've had. South Africa, what? No, who said that? Anyway, but yeah, so when Jamie Vardy and Sturridge came on, we switched to a 4-4-2. Lallana kind of drifted out of the game at that point, but I think that was because he was doing more of the behind-the-scenes work. He was doing the grunt work. He was really just doing a lot more defensive duties than he was doing in the first half, so fair play to him there. And I really thought the 4-4-2 worked, and who would know? 4-4-2, isn't that the system? What's that team called? The team that's just won the league by 10 points. Oh yeah, 4-4-2 might actually work when you've got a player like Jamie Vardy up front, and then you've got a player like Daniel Sturridge, who is world class in his day to partner him. Lo and behold, Roy, you finally cracked the Da Vinci fucking code. But anyway, as Vardy scores his goal, really good refereeing, I'll have to say. Referees get plenty of stick in this game for being poor, and they don't get enough praise when they did well. I think those referees did a spot-on job in this game, especially when they correctly identified that it was Ashley Williams who headed the ball, which ended up going to Jamie Vardy. Had it been an England player, he would have been offside. Very well done by the German officials. I think they were German. If they were, that is a bit puzzling, isn't it? That kind of goes against everything you believe in as an Englishman, but, it is what it is. So once we got back in the game, I really thought that getting an early goal in that second half, I said to myself, if we can get a goal before the hour mark, we'll win this game, no problem. And we got that goal before the hour mark, and I thought, brilliant, let's go get another goal. And for about 5 or 10 minutes, we battered them, and we created so many opportunities that I really thought we were going to actually, sort of overwhelm them, maybe even score 2 or 3. And then it faded, and then we got to that point where Wales sort of won the tempo of the game back, because really the way that this game was it was England possessing the ball, trying to make something happen and break Wales down. Wales are a good defensive team. It's very underreported. They're a good defensive team. Conceded 4 goals in qualifying. That's impressive. I think England conceded more than 4 goals in qualifying, and we won all of our games. They didn't concede a single goal against Belgium, who were one of the favourites to win the tournament, although they did lose to Italy in their opening game. And it was always going to be difficult to break them down when we were playing at their pace, and Wales started to get us to play at their pace again, and that was when I really thought that the life was getting sucked out of the game. And once again, Roy Hodgson made a decision that I really thought injected some life into the game. Adam Lallana, he put in a shift, he ran his socks off, bring on somebody else, and you're thinking, okay, he's probably going to bring on, maybe Ross Barkley, or he didn't bring too many wingers, so you're sort of scratching your head thinking, who's he going to bring on for Lallana? And he brings on Marcus Rashford, and you're thinking, he's going for it. He knows that his job is on the line. This is the man who guided us to a spectacular failure at the 2014 World Cup, and at the last Euros, we got completely outclassed by an ageing Italy side that got spanked by Spain in the final. So you just sort of thought, if Roy Hodgson doesn't perform in this tournament, there's no way he's keeping his job. And he knew that, and fair play to the man who has been called extremely negative by some people and extremely playing things safe during the tournament, or during his regular managing career. During this tournament, he plays very attacking football, and he showed that by bringing Rashford on. And Rashford, the kid's brilliant. If any of you watch my MU reviews, I'm raving about Marcus Rashford. You wonder where he came from. A kid who couldn't even get into United's under-21 team at the start of this year has now all of a sudden not only broken into the United team as a starter and scored 7 or 8 goals, he's then gone and gotten picked for England, and he's become England's youngest ever player at a major tournament, beating Wayne Rooney by 4 days, which is why I think it was very good of Roy Hodgson to play him in this game and not on Monday. Technically, I suppose that would have been even, but Rashford's gonna be glad that he has that record, and I'm sure Wayne Rooney doesn't mind letting Rashford have one of his records in an England shirt. And so Rashford came on, and he really looked bright. He definitely had a couple of poor touches here, but the thing about the kid is he never lets his head drop, and that's what I love about him. Is that Raheem Sterling, when he missed that chance, when he was running through and Adam Lallana crossed that ball in, I was thinking, hang on a minute, we might score this goal. And then when he puts it over the bar, I'm thinking, you bellend, why did you just miss that? But at the same time, I sort of thought, decent run, first 5 minutes, get a good touch in, but he let that completely shoot his confidence. Marcus Rashford, his first touch was a terrible touch, ballooned it about 6 yards to his right, and then went and committed a foul. That was his first act in an England shirt. But did he let his head drop? Not for a second. He started taking men on, he picked the ball up at his feet and started playing 1-2s, the things that he was doing at United, and it's clear to see why everyone is so crazy about Marcus Rashford, myself more than anybody. And even though Marcus Rashford wasn't directly involved in either of the goals, obviously he wasn't on the pitch for the first one and definitely wasn't directly involved in the second one, he was always causing Wales problems. And when you have that extra man making runs, it takes men away from players like Daniel Sturridge, who can then create space. And then that is exactly what happened for our goal. Now, Joe Ledley, the man who has to be part machine at this point, considering he broke his leg 5 weeks ago. He broke his leg 5 weeks ago. Not only is he playing, but he's starting in a European Championship game. That man is... I wouldn't want to get into a fight with him, let's just put it that way. It looked for a second like he may have re-broken the leg, and I don't know, I haven't checked, I haven't heard anything, and at this writing, it's been several hours since the game at this point, so I'm assuming he's alright, which is good. I don't dislike Wales, only when they're playing England. But when he went off the pitch, Daniel Sturridge came out of his pocket and started, darting about. And the bloke who came on for him, I can't remember his first name, his last name's Edwards, comes on, and for our second goal, which ended up being the winner, he obviously completely left him for dead, and Sturridge kind of sort of drifted into those spaces. The 1-2 was created obviously by Daniel Sturridge, who then just made his run through. And Dele Alli, under extreme pressure, considering that he didn't have the best of games against Russia and he hadn't had the best of games today against Wales, but he still was right in there. He held off his man brilliantly, tried to knock it on, and because Sturridge went through and we had the extra man, he managed to get the ball. And the thing about Daniel Sturridge that makes him world class on his day, like I say, on his day, I'm not saying that he's, someone who's consistently performing at that level, but the thing about him that makes him world class is that natural striker's instinct. It's the same instinct that Jamie Vardy had to score his goal. He didn't worry about being offside. He saw the ball, he was 6 yards out, he stuck it in the back of the net. He didn't think twice. And Daniel Sturridge makes his run through, he starts the move, and then he finishes it. He gets the ball at his feet. He's got anyone and everyone stabbing in, like really trying their best to put him off. And what does he do? Instead of making a hash of it and trying to smack it, and he stays composed. And the man who can shoot with no backlift is always going to have a one up on the goalkeeper he's facing, and that's exactly what happened. Wayne Hennessy was basically faced with a ball that was coming at him from about 6 yards, if that, the better part of 6 yards, and it's on Sturridge's left foot, so it's a decent amount of power with no reaction time. There was no time for Wayne Hennessy to read where he was going, but because before Wayne Hennessy even know he was going to shoot, the ball had already hit his hand and gone into the net. Now, I was watching the game, obviously, and I went absolutely ballistic because I was so convinced that this game was going to finish 1-1 even before the game started. And to be completely honest, and I know that there's no way of proving this, I said that Gareth Bale would score to put Wales in the lead, and that Jamie Vardy would equalise. I know everyone's going to not believe me. I genuinely did say that, and to be fair, I'm pretty sure I said it before the tournament even started, not just before the game today. And I just saw it going that way. But in the last 15 minutes of the game, I just thought to myself, like, there is another goal in this game. And you can sort of tell the way that games go in these competitions, especially in these early stages of the Euros, when teams are very tight and compact. I don't think any team has scored more than 2 goals in a game so far, and I don't think no one has won by more than 2 goals. And even when they do, it's usually they're 1-0 up and then they nick a goal on the counter-attack. And so when you consider that is the way that this tournament typically goes, a 1-1 draw between teams like England and Wales, you sort of thought, all right, we've got to beat Slovakia now. But then we go into that 92nd minute, and it's the absolute reverse of the pain we felt against Russia, and it really did completely wash the stain of the Russia match for me, because that left such a bitter taste in my mouth. As you probably saw if you watched my video about that game, I was really wound up about it, and in hindsight, I probably overreacted a bit. Now, in the first half of this game, I thought that I was actually being really nice to the lads, because they were absolutely dog shit in that first half. But they came out in the second half, and credit to Roy Hodgson, he made the right substitutions and he got the result. And now that we've got 4 points in this group, I can't see us going out with the way that this tournament is structured. 8 teams go out, 8 out of 24. If you finish in the top 3, which I'm pretty sure we are mathematically guaranteed to finish in the top 3 now, then you just have to, you don't even have to be one of the best. You just have to not be one of the 2 worst third place teams. And when you've got groups that have teams like, Northern Ireland, who won today, might finish third, in their group on 3 points and things like that, you're gonna get through with 4 points no matter what the layout of your group is. So obviously going into the Slovakia game, you'd expect Roy Hodgson to stick with the system that really won us the game, because we lost the first half and we won the second half. And if he sticks with the system that won the second half, I feel like we can cause lots of teams problems. There's still problems with England. I thought Eric Dyer was fantastic today, and I've already mentioned the brilliant Kyle Walker, who was my man of the match by a mile for running like an Olympic triathlete all day down that right hand side. Skinned Neil Taylor every day of the week. He had his number like it was off the side of a bathroom stall. It was absolutely ridiculous from a player who a year ago you wouldn't have put in the England squad, and I don't think has ever played for England at a major tournament. And so to have players like that performing, and 2 Spurs players, Dele Alli got the assist. I mean, Harry Kane may not be firing, but all his teammates are, so maybe Harry Kane will come back into it. But it'll be interesting to see how he lines up against Slovakia. We can go into that game knowing with the pressure off, and I feel like that will really allow us to express ourselves if we let it. And obviously Slovakia are a decent side. They're not anything special. Like, we really should beat them. They do have one star player in Marek Hamšík who scored an outrageous goal against Russia. So he's always, just like Gareth Bale did today, he always is going to have the ability to change that game. But when you're a team with as much quality as England have, especially going forward, it doesn't matter if Marek Hamšík pulls out a hat-trick if you go and stick 5 past his, second-rate Slovakian goalkeeper. So I think we can go into that game with an attacking approach, and we can put them out of sight in the first half if we really perform. And if we do that, that'll give us so much confidence. Not only would we top the group guaranteed with a victory, we don't even necessarily need a victory if Wales don't beat Russia. We just need to draw. And we're almost guaranteed to go through at very worst in third place, and I would be annoyed if we finished third at this point, whereas after the game on Saturday, I might have taken it if you'd offered it to me. But I'm pretty happy with everything that's gone on today. Of course, I'm delighted to win a game in the last minute. Who isn't? Fantastic way to win it. And for England to really... It's the first time they've come from behind to win a game in a major tournament ever, when they were when they were trailing at half-time, I should say. And I think that is the kind of record that we need to break. If we've still never won our opening game at a European Championship, and I was very hung up on the fact that continued statistic being shoved down the players' throats was really going to play on their minds, and I think it might have in that first half. I think they still had half their heads in the Russia game, but now with that second half in the bag, with players like Sturridge and Vardy confident and playing well, and not to mention Wayne Rooney, Kyle Walker playing well, Eric Dyer rock solid in midfield, we've got a decent team here. I'm not saying we're going to win the tournament. I think that, to be honest, I think we've got about as much chance of winning the tournament as Wales do, and maybe that's me being pessimistic, but I don't see us winning it. For me, success at this tournament, obviously only one team can truly be successful, but from an England perspective, success would be reaching the semi-finals, because that's something we haven't done for 20 years since we were hosting the Euros at Euro 96. And I think that would be a great step in the right direction, especially 2 years on from going out in the group stage in such ignominy. I don't really know how to say that word. You know what I meant. In Brazil. And going into the Russian World Cup, which, is going to be, Grand Theft Russia the entire game. I can't believe that they're giving Russia the World Cup, even after all the stuff that's going on here. Anyway, not the topic of this video. I think England can do something in this tournament if they perform like they did in that second half against Slovakia. We'll get a top seed for the second round, and then we'll probably meet a team maybe like Northern Ireland, a team that is plucky, has courage, has nicked a win in the group stages, but ultimately should be rolled over by a team of our qualities. And if we can get into the quarterfinals, once you get down to the last day, anything can happen. And I know I sound so much 180 degrees turned around from my last video, but that's the effect that football has, especially in these major tournaments, because momentum is everything. I said it in the last video, I say it again. The fact that we've regained the momentum, and it was bloody difficult to regain it from a decent Wales team who I think have just as much chance of doing well in this tournament as we do, especially because I think they will stuff Russia on the last day and they will go through from this group. I really fancy England and Wales to do something in this tournament if they play the way that they've been playing. So anyway, that is an extra long England review, even though I managed to talk a mile a minute, as I sometimes always do. Always lots to say about England. I know that you've got a lot to say about England if you're watching this video. Good, bad or indifferent, I want to hear it. Put it in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if you didn't like it. I really don't care. My last video got 9 likes and 8 dislikes, and I kind of just like the fact that 17 people gave enough of a shit to vote on the video. So cheers for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Monday, hopefully to review England's biggest ever victory at a European Championship. Maybe I'm getting a bit too overconfident there, but thanks for watching.